When going into any Mortal Kombat story, you come to expect characters classified as jobbers. Characters that aren't as important as the main few. Sometimes they're used as punching bags, cannon fodder, and plot devices, but other times it's a character that doesn't really fit the mold of a jobber, but still does far less than the main characters, so they get bunched up with them. I guess my stance on it would be all jobbers are not created equally, and I'll give an example of this. MK1 Rain and Tanya are characters I've seen people say are jobbers, right? They both don't have a chapter, they both don't really get spotlight, so when they are on screen, what do they do? And I feel this question is what you really need to ask when distinguishing a character's overall value and worth, especially in such a short time span of story like the MK story modes tend to be. So our first example, Rain. He looks cool, he seems fun to play, right? These are good things, but in the story, the main piece of info we get about him is from another character. In Sindel's chapter, she talks to Rain, saying he was like a son to her, and he basically rejects this. And this could have been a cool idea, seeing his actual fall from grace, seeing his thought process and what this meant to him and Sindel, but we didn't see that, except for when it's told by Sindel, and there's no real reason why he did that. There's no build up for that. There's no explanation of his motives, his character, or anything. The only other time you really see him in the story, if he isn't being beat up, is when he's trying to help Melina with Tarkat, alongside Shang Tsung and Tanya. But he's only there because he's Outworld's High Mage. And this is actually a perfect way to segue into Tanya here, because sadly, I think this is all I can really say about Rain. And this isn't a Rain video, by the way, it's a Tanya video. But my point here is because we see Rain basically do nothing in the story, his motives aren't clear, and we don't see him have any sort of character consistency outside of just being evil for the sake of it. This makes him fall flat. And even things like his tower ending, which I think could have been a very cool thing had it been built upon, doesn't have weight to it. He just suddenly seeks forgiveness. He regrets what he did against Outworld and wants to go back to being the High Mage essentially. And again, there's no progression here. We didn't even really get to see him have character regression because there was no foundation. Now let's turn our attention to Tanya. Even in the exact same situation as Rain, when they're with Shang Tsung trying to treat Melina's Tarkat, maybe we think she's a bad guy at first, right? The treacherous Tanya, like she's always been. But with her other inclusions in the story mode, we find out it is very consistent character writing. She's not only there because of her loyalty to Outworld and the Umgadi, but also because of her worry for Melina. And this is consistently why she does what she does. She's either fighting for the Umgadi, protecting Outworld, or protecting Princess Melina. And this is a big deal. These are the things that separate a character that has no real meat to them, that doesn't display their thought process or emotions, to a character that is consistently doing things that build them up to have obvious motives along with being believable. And being believable, I feel, is extremely important. At least to me, I feel it is integral to understanding a character. Having a believable motive, having believable moments on screen, is something that makes a fictional character feel realistically tangible. These realistic character motives, like Tanya has, is something I feel makes her far different from a normal quote-unquote jobber. But even with that said, with that all laid out on the table, even if I can decipher Tanya from other characters of lesser quality, how does that make her misunderstood, as the title implies? Well, really, I think it honestly comes down to the perception of a jobber. Like I said in the beginning of the video, when a character doesn't have a chapter in Mortal Kombat stories, when a character doesn't have the front seat all the time, people immediately resort to, okay, the character's bad, they're shit, their motives don't really make sense, since they are not on screen enough for us to care about them, etc, etc. And I completely don't agree with this, for Tanya specifically. I would understand if she was very flip-floppy, but she isn't. Every time she's on screen, it's either in service of her desire to protect Melina, or her loyalty to the Umgadi. And honestly, even saying her loyalty to the Umgadi can be a bit muddy, because the Umgadi are sworn to chastity, and her secondary main motive is her care for Melina. But it's not like every time she sees Melina it's to have relations. It's something much greater than that, and it's already a recurring theme in the story through not only what Melina says to Katana, but also Tanya's actions involving Melina, that basically says the Umgadi's rules revolving around relationships are quite dumb. They're kinda silly. So for the sake of right now, when I say her loyalty to Outworld, I also by proxy mean her loyalty to the Umgadi, with every other iteration of Tanya being treacherous, somebody who can't be trusted, who is always selfish. Seeing this take on the character is understandably going to make people think that it is a lesser, and including the fact that she isn't on the front lines of the cast, people not liking her is going to be a byproduct of that. But I feel it is disingenuous to again say that she isn't a good character or a believable one. From the first time we see her in the tournament, she is there protecting Melina and Kitana, doing her job. And again, when helping Melina tree her Tarkat, she's doing so for her loyalty to the princesses, to the Empress, but also her feelings for Melina. So now we actually have these different threads woven together to create this kind of internal conflict within Tanya. It isn't as cut and dry as she's loyal to Outworld, she's loyal to Melina. There's also a third component here. Her relationship with Melina, were it known, would not be a good thing for her. It would actually ruin her career as an Umgadi. And this is extremely important to her. In her own words, the Umgadi and her sisters are her life. This isn't something she's doing because, she's a risky person, she's living on the edge. No. She's a very loyal person, very reliable and passionate. Protecting Outworld, seeing the princess, keeping her safe, these are things that dictate her entire life. She does these things to such a degree and holds that to such a high standard that it almost can be at a fault. This is where we get to that Tanya moment. The one that makes people say, oh, I hate Tanya, or why would she do that, etc. And I genuinely feel that it isn't a fault of Tanya's actions. I feel it's a fault of misunderstanding her character. The moment I'm referencing is, of course, when she abruptly chokes out Li Mei, when she is discussing with Sindel. This moment is very important for Li Mei, because Sindel was finally understanding her best friend, after so long of being the scapegoat for this pain, this trauma, this disgust that erupted from the death of Emperor Jared. And I do know Tanya's tower ending, and we will touch upon that in a second, but we do have to acknowledge here that Tanya, Sindel, Melina, Kitana all think Li Mei at this moment is still the one responsible for the death of Jared. Keeping that in mind, that tension, that horrific feeling that must come up when seeing Li Mei at this time, mixed with Tanya's consistent emotions, her passionate approach to protect Outworld, and her desire to impress the Empress, very similarly to Li Mei in that sense, are all factors here. Now, it is never explicitly stated why Tanya did this, but with what I've laid out here, I think you know where I'm going with this. Even though it isn't flat out explained why she did this, given what her headspace must have been here, given what she could have implied for Sindel, it makes complete sense that she took this aggressive approach with Li Mei. Even though to us the viewer it is directly displayed that Sindel was going to listen to Li Mei, to Tanya at this time, those feelings were not reciprocated. She thought that Sindel wanted her to do this. This is the woman that killed your husband, the Emperor of Outworld. Why would we try and hear her sympathies? Why would we try and give her the time of day? We have to remember that the Umgadi are vigilant protectors of Outworld. Tanya herself is a very determined person. Why would she wait for the order from Sindel to attack Li Mei? After what happened to Jared, she should know better than that. I hope I'm making sense here. I feel with what I've laid out, I can give a clear picture as to not only what Tanya must have been thinking in this moment, but why her actions make complete sense. Her consistency as a character, if not there, I'd understand. It would then seem like Tanya was having an outburst of immaturity or doing something that was completely unwarranted. But because of the way they've approached her, I feel these actions are believable. And this is without me even touching upon the scenes of her and Melina in Melina's chapter, which only further solidify what I've been saying in this video. And I don't really want to repeat that since I think you get the picture. Tanya has specific things that she cares about, certain things that she works extremely hard for, and it's something that is Consistent. I hate saying that word a million times. I apologize, but it's true. I think it's important that we do close this off with explaining her tower ending briefly, because in her tower ending, we actually find out the truth about Li Mei. The truth that us, the viewer, already knew, but it's something that the princess, the former empress, and all of Outworld didn't know. After the events of the main story, Tanya got to know Li Mei. She now knows this is not somebody who would do that. It makes no sense. That's not the Li Mei she now knows. So Tanya seeks out the truth. She finds out that the matron superiors of the Umgadi were the real culprits here. In other words, the higher-ups of the Umgadi were the real ones that let this happen. Emperor Jared's death. It was the fault of their poor decisions and failures. And in this ending, we also get the final moment, I'd say, for Tanya that further solidifies her determination and her loyalty. Upon hearing the truth, Empress Melina wanted the Umgadi disbanded, but Tanya was not gonna let that happen. She knew it could be reformed. She knew there were people like her sisters, that truly wanted the Umgadi to be something great, to be the true protectors of Outworld. When Tanya convinced the Empress that they could be reformed, she appointed her as the leader to lead the charge of the Umgadi, and Tanya was so grateful for this. She was not going to let the poor decisions of the few dictate the lives of many. Again, she sticks up for justice. She has a strong desire to protect and is consistent to her morals, and that's all I'm trying to say with this video. I truly do enjoy MK1 Tanya, and some of the discourse I've seen about her, I just felt that she was misunderstood. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and ladies, gentlemen, and MB beauties, I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.